The wind had that biting edge, the kind that slipped under coats and settled in bones, whispering of storms to come. Snow fell soft and steady through the pine canopy, dusting the world in silence. It was the kind of evening that made everything feel still, as though time itself had paused to take a breath. Evan stood at the edge of the tree line, one hand resting on the post of the broken fence, eyes scanning the forest ahead. Maple had vanished into those woods an hour ago. She'd chased after a sound, a scent, he wasn't sure, and hadn't come back. He gave a low whistle. Maple! The name echoed and fell flat, swallowed by snow. He waited. Nothing moved, no wagging tail, no rustle of underbrush, only the gentle hush of snowfall and the distant creak of trees groaning under the weight of winter. Behind him, the cabin sat tucked against the slope like it had always been there. Smoke threaded out of the chimney, a thin promise of warmth. Inside, Lily was finishing her coloring. She'd insisted on drawing a picture of her mom today. Said she dreamed about her last night, that she had long hair and sang a song about fireflies. Evan took one more look at the woods, then turned back toward home. His boots crunched against the frost-bitten path. He knew better than to follow her deep into the trees with night falling. She always came back, always had. Inside, warmth wrapped around him in waves, wood smoke, faint cinnamon, and the ever-present scent of pine. Lily looked up from the rug, her blonde curls spilling out from under her knit cap. She grinned, missing a front tooth. "Did you find her?" He shook his head slowly, hanging his coat. "Not yet, Bug. She's probably chasing rabbits again." Lily frowned. "I put peanut butter in her bowl. That always makes her come back faster." He smiled and ruffled her hair. "You're smart like that." He didn't tell her about the tracks he'd seen, circling, then fading into deeper drifts. They ate a quiet dinner. Leftover soup, warm bread, and apple slices Lily had cut herself with her kid-safe knife. She told him about the colors she used for her drawing. Purple for the sky, yellow for Mama's dress. Evan listened, nodding, smiling, letting her talk. He cherished the sound of her voice, the way she hummed between sentences like she was scoring her own soundtrack. After Lily fell asleep tucked against her stuffed bear, Evan sat at the table with a mug of cooling tea. He pulled out the tin box from the shelf above the fireplace. Inside was a folded piece of parchment, edges worn, soft from handling. His wife's handwriting curved across it like a song. He didn't read it tonight. He didn't have to. He knew every word by heart. Instead, he ran his fingers over the envelope, the quiet ache in his chest a familiar throb. Grief didn't scream anymore. It hummed, subtle, steady. He folded it back and tucked it away like a ritual. Then he looked out the window. Still no sign of Maple. The next morning, the world was covered in new snow, untouched, blindingly white. Evan tried not to panic as he pulled on his boots. Lily was still in her pajamas, sipping hot cocoa. She looked up with wide eyes. "You're going to look for her?" He nodded. "Just for a bit." She bit her lip. "Will you take this?" She held out her scarf, bright pink with glittery thread. "So she doesn't get cold." He knelt, took it gently, and kissed her forehead. "She'll love it." The forest was quiet again, but it held a different silence, tense, waiting. He moved carefully, eyes scanning for any sign of tracks. He found a few, dog prints, light and scattered, but they vanished quickly beneath the weight of snow. He followed instinct, remembering the routes Maple liked best. Hours passed. Nothing. At the edge of the ridge, he paused, wind tearing at his coat. Below, the forest curved like a cradle. He saw no movement, no familiar flash of fur. Just trees, just snow. That night, he tried not to show his fear. Lily kept looking at the door. She set the scarf on the floor next to Maple's bowl, just in case. Evan said nothing, but later, as he cleaned up, he saw her bear wearing the scarf instead. The days slipped by, each one colder than the last. Evan put out food, left a light burning on the porch, walked longer stretches through the woods. He asked at the small-town store if anyone had seen her. No one had. Still, he hoped. It was on the fifth night that something shifted. A sound woke. Him. Not loud, not sharp, but wrong. Faint crying, distant, muffled. He sat up, heart thudding, listening. There it was again. A child. Couldn't be Lily. She was curled beside him, deep asleep. He dressed quickly, grabbed his coat and lantern, and stepped out into the dark. Snow fell in lazy flakes, the kind that didn't rush to the ground. He followed the sound, down past the ridge, into the trees. It was quieter here, too quiet. Then he heard it again, faint, choked sobs. He rounded a bend near the creek bed and saw it, a faint orange glow flickering between stones. He approached slowly, careful not to startle anyone. And then he saw them. A woman, wrapped in a torn coat, arms curled tightly around two children, both shivering, both barely conscious. The fire beside them was pitiful, just embers and smoke. They looked up as he neared. The woman didn't speak, didn't move. Her eyes were wide, hollow, protective, desperate. He crouched, held out his hands. "I'm here to help," he said gently. "I've got a warm place. We need to get you all out of this cold." The children didn't react. The woman blinked once, slow, then nodded. He carried the smallest child first, bundled tightly in his coat, then the second, who clung to his shirt with trembling hands. The woman followed, silent. Her steps were unsure, as if her body no longer trusted the ground. Back at the cabin, Lily woke as he laid the children on the couch. She stared, wide-eyed, but said nothing. Instead, she grabbed more blankets, moving fast like her father had taught her in emergencies. She placed her bear between the two kids, gently, as though he could protect them. The woman didn't speak, for a long time. She sat beside the fire, staring into it. Her hands were raw and cracked. Evan made tea, offered soup, helped wrap her hands in salve and linen. Still, no words. Later, as the snow deepened outside, Lily whispered, "She looks really tired." "She is," Evan replied softly. "She's been through a lot." "What's her name?" "I don't know yet." That night, Evan didn't sleep much. He kept the fire going, checked on the children often. One coughed in their sleep, the sound sharp and rattling. The woman watched him move through the room like she was trying to understand why he cared. Before dawn, she finally spoke. Her voice was rough, dry. "Mara," he turned. "What?" "My name," she said. "Mara." He nodded. "Evan, that's Lily." She looked toward the girl curled on the rug, then back at him. Her eyes glistened just for a moment. "Thank you," she whispered. He said nothing, just nodded and went to put another log on the fire. By morning, the cabin smelled of soup and smoke and something else. Something new. The children stirred. Mara fed them with careful hands. She still didn't speak much, but there was something soft in her movements now, a kind of fragile safety. That evening, as Evan tucked Lily into bed, she asked quietly, "Is Maple still gone?" He hesitated. "Yeah, she is." She stared at the ceiling. "Do you think maybe she went to find them?" Evan blinked. "What do you mean?" "She's smart," Lily said simply. "Maybe she knew they needed help." Evan didn't answer right away. He looked out the window. Snow still. Fell, gently. "Maybe she did," he said finally, voice thick. "Maybe she did." And in the corner of the room, near the door, the scarf still waited. The morning after Mara and the children arrived, the storm finally broke. Wind shrieked through the trees and lashed against the cabin, rattling the windows with icy claws. The snow was relentless, piling high against the porch and swallowing the path Evan had carved days before. Inside, warmth cocooned them, but the tension hung heavy, quiet, watchful. Mara sat near the fire, her posture tight, as though relaxing. Even an inch would shatter her. The boy, Jamie, she'd whispered during the night, clung to her side while the younger girl, Elsie, had finally stopped shivering, lulled into sleep by the steady heat and Lily's bear. Lily watched everything with wide eyes, saying little, absorbing each movement like it was part of a story she hadn't read to the end yet. Evan moved around the cabin with practiced ease. More tea, more soup, more wood for the fire. But Mara's presence shifted everything. The cabin, once a space of quiet grief and slow healing, now buzzed with the uncertain rhythm of new lives intersecting. He noticed how Mara's eyes never left the door. Every gust of wind made her flinch. Even in warmth, she remained cold, detached. He didn't ask questions, not yet. Later that day, while the children napped, Evan found her sitting alone at the table, fingers wrapped around a chipped mug. Her face was still pale, lips dry, but the firelight gave her skin a faint glow. He sat across from her, not too close, and stirred his tea slowly. "You don't have to tell me anything," he said gently. "But if you need help, I need to know what kind." She stared at the steam rising from her drink. Her voice was so low he almost missed it. "He's looking for us." Evan didn't move. The weight of the sentence sat between them like a dropped stone. "He's not going to stop," she added, eyes lifting to meet his. "He has friends, money. No one ever believed me, not really. Not until he hit Jamie." A muscle in Evan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. The stories didn't shock him anymore. The world was full of men who wore smiles in public and fury in private. "We ran at night," she continued. "Took the back roads. Slept in a barn 2 days before we got here. I didn't mean to come this far. I just kept going." "You did the right thing." She laughed, dry and bitter. "Feels like surviving. One night at a time, not living. Survival's the first step," he said softly. "Living comes later." She blinked quickly and turned her face away. The silence stretched, comfortable in its own way. Then Jamie stirred from the couch, calling her name in his sleep. Mara stood quickly and crossed the room, every move instinctively, protective. As the storm continued, the cabin became a rhythm of survival. Meals were simple and frequent. Evan reinforced the windows, added logs to the fire, helped Lily teach the other kids a clumsy version of Go Fish. Slowly, Mara softened, not fully, not with trust, but with necessity. She let Lily braid Elsie's hair. She accepted Evan's, offered to help wash their few clothes in the basin, and she started sleeping through the night, albeit lightly. The children adjusted faster. Jamie began to follow Evan outside when the wind calmed, helping him chop wood with serious, silent focus. Elsie clung to Lily, echoing her words, copying her games. Their presence changed the shape of the house. Laughter returned, tentative but real. For the first time in months, Evan saw Lily smile without forcing it. But on the fourth night, something cracked, a truck engine in the distance, headlights cutting faint lines through the trees. Evan's blood went cold. He moved fast, put out the lamps, killed the fire low. Mara froze when he looked at her. "Upstairs. Take the kids. Now." She didn't argue. He opened the gun cabinet, not out of paranoia, but principle, and loaded the rifle with a calmness that belied his pounding heart. He stepped onto the porch, keeping low, listening. The sound of tires crunching frozen gravel. Grew closer, then stopped. Too close. The truck's door opened, heavy boots hit the snow. A figure moved toward the edge of the woods, flashlight sweeping lazily over the trees. Evan stepped into the open, gun raised. Not aimed, not threatening, just visible. "Private property," he said evenly. "Nothing for you here." The man paused, scanning the cabin. "You seen a woman, 2 kids?" "Don't know what you're talking about." The man took a step forward, casual menace dripping from his posture. "They ran off with things that belonged to me. Pretty sure they passed through here." Evan didn't flinch. "If you're smart, you'll get back in your truck and drive." There was a silence. Then the man spat into the snow, turned and walked back without a word. The engine roared to life, tires spinning as the truck vanished into darkness. Evan waited until the sound was long gone before going inside. Upstairs, the kids huddled under blankets. Mara stood near the wall, arms crossed over her chest, shaking. "He won't stop," she whispered. "Let him come," Evan said. "Next time he'll meet the sheriff before he meets me. You don't know what he's capable of. I don't care." She stared at him, breath hitching. "You'll get hurt. Lily, this is my home," he said firmly. "And You're safe here." The words were more than comfort, they were a promise. The next day, Evan rode into town. He stopped by the sheriff's office, told him everything. Sheriff Burns was a quiet man with steady hands. He listened, didn't interrupt, and made a few phone calls. When Evan left, there was a patrol car parked at the edge of his driveway. Before nightfall, Mara cried that evening. Not loud, not messy. Just a few tears she didn't bother hiding while peeling potatoes. Evan didn't mention them. Instead, he handed her the salt, and they finished cooking in silence. That night, Lily crawled into Mara's lap during story time. She didn't ask permission, just curled against her like it was the most natural thing. Mara stiffened for a moment, then wrapped an arm around her. Evan watched the moment from his chair. He didn't say anything, but something deep in his chest unfurled. Not hope, not yet, but the memory of it. Over the next few days, things found a rhythm again. The snow began to melt. The children played outside longer. Evan caught Mara humming once while hanging laundry on the line, and she blushed when she realized he'd heard. One afternoon, Lily found something by the edge of the woods. A bit of torn pink cloth frayed with snow and time. "Is this my scarf?" she asked, holding it up. Evan took it gently, heart thudding. It was Maple's scarf, the one Lily had left out. Tattered but unmistakable. "She came back," Lily whispered, eyes wide. Evan nodded slowly. "I think she did." That night, after the children were asleep, Mara joined him outside. They stood together on the porch, watching the stars poke. Through the dark like tiny promises. "You lost someone too," she said quietly. He nodded. "A year ago. Cancer. Fast. She must have been strong." "She was," he said. "So are you." Mara didn't speak for a long time. Then, "I think I forgot how to breathe without fear." "It comes back," Evan said. "One day, you just exhale and realize it doesn't hurt." She turned to him, face lit faintly by the moon. "Thank you for all of it. You don't owe me thanks." "Yes, I do." They stood there in silence, shoulder to shoulder, and when she reached out, hesitant, unsure, he let her hand find his. In the woods, far beyond the clearing, a howl rose and faded. Evan closed his eyes and smiled. Something was healing, and somewhere out there Maple was watching. The days slid forward with a fragile kind of peace, like a bird cautiously returning to a nest after a storm. Evan found himself watching the children. More than usual, how Jamie stood straighter now, how Elsie no longer whimpered in her sleep, how Lily had started humming again while brushing her hair. But the quiet didn't feel permanent. It felt borrowed, like a breath held too long. And in the way Mara would still glance toward the window at the smallest creek, Evan knew she felt it too. One morning, the radio crackled to life, startling them all. Evan hadn't touched it in months. He'd assumed the signal tower had gone down during the last ice storm. But now a voice fought through the static. Vehicle matching the description was last seen headed west. "If anyone has information, contact the sheriff's department." Mara stood behind him, her hand tightening on the back of the chair. Her eyes flicked to the door. "He's still looking," she whispered. "He'll have a harder time finding." "Anything up here," Evan said. But even as he said it, he felt the weight in his gut settle deeper. He couldn't lie to her. Not about this. Not when trust had been so hard won. That night, Mara came to him with a plan. It wasn't dramatic or desperate. It was quiet and careful and terrifying in its simplicity. "We can't stay here forever," she said. "But I can't run anymore either. Not with them. I need to go back. Talk to someone higher up. Somewhere beyond his reach. If I don't, he'll keep chasing us. He won't stop until—" Evan looked at her, saw the shadows under her eyes, the sharp edge of resolve. "You're talking about testifying." "I have records, documents, messages, proof. I never used them before. I was scared they'd disappear, or worse. And now, I'm more scared of what happens if I don't use them." Evan nodded slowly. "I'll go with you." "No, I need you here, with the kids. They trust you." He opened his mouth to argue, but then looked toward the loft where they all slept. Jamie was protective of his sister, but when Evan was near, the boy relaxed. And Elsie. She clung to Lily like she'd always belonged. He knew what Mara was really asking. Not just for shelter, for protection, for belief, and, maybe, for love. "I'll keep them safe," he said. She reached across the table and gripped his hand tightly. "I know." Mara left before dawn. Evan watched her silhouette disappear through the trees, backpack slung over one shoulder, scarf tight around her neck. He stood there long after she'd gone, letting the cold bite his skin until it grounded him. Then he went back inside, where 3 children slept without fear for the first time in a long while. The days without Mara stretched. Evan kept a tight routine: firewood, breakfast, games, walks. He read books out loud until his voice was hoarse. Jamie helped with the chores, his eyes scanning the horizon more often than he let on. Lily stayed close to Elsie, inventing fairy tales that seemed to calm them both. But Evan felt Mara's absence in the quiet spaces, her voice at night, her presence at the table, the slight creak of the floorboards when she paced. He kept the rifle by the door, always. On the 6th night, the patrol car that usually idled near the property line was gone. Evan didn't like that. He called the sheriff's office. No answer. He tried again an hour later. Still nothing. That same evening, a note was slipped under the front door. It was small, handwritten, and damp from the snow. "She won't make it back, but we'll take good care of her. You've got something of mine. I'm coming to collect." Evan stared at the note for a long time. Then he locked every door, boarded up the windows, and pulled Jamie aside. "I need your help." Jamie didn't hesitate. "What do I do?" They moved quickly, setting traps in the snow, marking trees in the woods, creating false trails. Evan taught him how to load the rifle, how to signal from the loft window if anything looked wrong. Jamie's hands shook, but he didn't complain. "They took my mom," he said flatly. "They don't get my sister, too." Evan didn't sleep that night. Neither did Jamie. At dawn, there was movement in the trees. One figure, then 2. A third stayed farther back, near the edge of the clearing. Evan stepped outside with his rifle slung low but visible. The men weren't local. He could see it in their posture, the arrogance, the city jackets too thin for real cold. "Morning," Evan said. One of them smirked. "We're here for the kids. They're not yours. They belong with their father. Does a real father knock around his son?" The smirk faded. "We're not here to argue. Neither." "My." Behind him, Jamie signaled from the window. A thumb jerked left. Movement in the trees. They were flanking. Evan raised his voice. "Sheriff's due back soon. You won't want to be around when he shows up." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" A long pause, then the one in front shrugged. "Fine, we'll come back with papers." "You do that." The men backed away slowly, but Evan didn't lower the rifle until the sound of their footsteps was swallowed by the trees. Only then did he go inside and double-check every lock, every escape route, every stash of food and water. He didn't tell the kids about the note. He didn't tell them about the man in the trees who hadn't moved once. But Jamie knew. He saw it in Evan's face. "Will they kill her?" the boy asked that night, voice tight. "No," Evan said. "They need her scared. They need her silent. But Mara's stronger than they know." A day passed. Then 2. On the 3rd day, Mara returned. She was bruised, limping, and exhausted, but her eyes burned with something fierce and alive. She collapsed into Evan's arms at the door, and he carried her inside without a word. "They caught me halfway there," she said later, wrapped in blankets. "Tried to drag me back. I jumped out of the car while it was still moving. Got to a ranger station. Called someone I knew in the city. She's part of a federal task force now. They're coming." Evan didn't ask who they were. He just held her hand. That night, the first flakes of spring snow began to fall, gentler, softer than before. Mara slept deeply, her breathing finally troubled. The kids slept in the same room, crowded together like pups in a den. Evan sat by the door, rifle beside him, eyes wide open. Just before dawn, headlights lit the edge of the woods. 2 black SUVs. Government plates, men in suits, women with clipboards, guns at their sides, not raised but ready. Mara stood beside him as they approached. "Mrs. Callan?" one of the women asked. "You're safe now?" Mara nodded. "Let's finish this." She walked toward the cars. Jamie took Evan's hand. "Will she come back?" Evan looked down at him. "She'll come back different, stronger." Lily wrapped an arm around Elsie, who clutched the bear tight. The suits disappeared into the trees. Evan watched until the last shadow faded. When the door shut behind them, he exhaled. Long, steady, quiet. Later that afternoon, a warm wind blew through the cabin. Evan opened the windows. The snow began to melt in earnest. Mud rose in patches. Birds returned to the trees, and for the first time since winter gripped the valley, the scent of earth replaced the cold. A letter came 3 days later. No return address, but written in Mara's handwriting. "We're safe. They're pressing charges. I'm a witness now, not a fugitive. I'm coming back. Give the kids my love. Tell Jamie I saw what he did with the traps. Tell Lily she's brave. Tell Elsie she can keep the bear." Evan folded the letter and placed it in the kitchen drawer. The cabin had seen storms, grief, laughter, and healing. But now, it stood ready for something more. It stood ready for home. The morning she returned, the valley was veiled in golden mist, the sort that made the trees look like ghosts, and the earth like something sacred. Evan heard the crunch of tires before he saw the car. Jamie was already at the window, eyes wide, fists clenched around the frame. Mara stepped out slowly. No guards, no briefcases, no shadows looming behind her. Just her, a satchel, and the faintest smile curling her lips. The children burst from the cabin before Evan could say anything. Lily got to her first, clinging to her waist. Jamie stood stiff, hesitant, like if he blinked she might vanish again. But when Mara crouched and held her arms open, he ran to her, burying his face in her shoulder. Only Elsie hung back, peering. From behind the door, still clutching the bear, uncertain. "I missed you," Mara whispered, voice shaking. "All of you." Evan waited until the children pulled away. She turned to him, her eyes glassy with unshed tears, her body still tired, but brimming with something steadier, certainty. He walked to her, slow and deliberate, and wrapped his arms around her. "They're watching him now," she murmured. "Every call, every move. They raided his company, found everything, accounts, contracts, even wire transfers to silence people. It's all unraveling. But he's still out there," Evan said. Her expression darkened. "Yes, he's desperate now, and desperate men don't retreat. They destroy." Inside the cabin, Mara unpacked her satchel. Legal documents, a laptop with secured files, a burner phone, photographs, evidence of the rot that had stretched across her life like mold, hidden in polished offices and whispered conversations. "They're building a case that reaches far beyond him," she said. "And I'm at the center of it." Evan looked at the materials, the weight of it all sinking in. She wasn't just exposing a cruel man. She was pulling the veil off an entire network, one that relied on silence, fear, and loyalty paid in blood. "Are you safe here?" he asked. "No," she said honestly. "But nowhere else is safer, and nowhere else has you." That night, Jamie insisted on sleeping in the living room near the door. "Just in case," he said. Evan didn't argue. He gave the boy a flashlight, an old hunting knife, and nodded. "Wake me if you hear anything. No heroics." Jamie nodded, too serious for his age. At 3:07 a.m., the power cut out. No wind, no storm. Just sudden darkness, a thump from outside, and then silence so thick it felt alive. Evan grabbed the rifle. Jamie was already on his feet, breathing shallow. Flashlight clutched in one hand. Mara stepped out of the bedroom, fully dressed. "I knew this would happen," she whispered. "I felt it coming." Evan motioned for them to stay low. He crept to the window, peeled back the curtain an inch. The moonlight caught on something metallic by the tree line, a vehicle. No headlights. Parked just beyond the clearing, Mara joined him, eyes narrowing. "It's his truck. How do you know?" "I know the sound it makes when it idles, like a growl waiting to snap." Evan's heart pounded. He's not alone. I see movement. We need to get the kids into the crawl space, Mara said. They'll be safe there. It's reinforced. Evan nodded. Do it fast. I'll hold the front. Mara moved quickly, waking Lily and Elsie with a calm, practiced urgency. Jamie followed her into the pantry, lifting the hatch with shaking hands. Evan heard the soft clambering as they disappeared into the dark beneath the floor, then silence again. Evan stood at the door, rifle raised, a voice sliced through the night. You've got something of mine, Evan. It was deeper than he remembered. Worn like leather, cruelly amused. Her husband. You've got 5 minutes to give her back. Evan didn't respond. He aimed through the slit in the door, fingers tight on the trigger. Mara emerged, eyes blazing. Let me talk to him. Evan blocked her. No, that's what he wants. I'm not afraid of him anymore. You don't need to prove that to anyone. She reached around him and opened the door a crack. Her voice was calm, but carried power. I'm not yours anymore, Grant. You were mine the day we married. You and those brats of yours. They're not yours either, not anymore. He laughed, a cold, ragged sound. You think the law protects you now? You think a badge means anything when I know where you sleep? She didn't flinch. You came here with violence, but I came with truth, and truth is louder than you'll ever be. Evan pulled the door wide, rifle aimed square at the shadows. Leave, Grant, while you still can. I don't think you understand how this ends. I do, Evan said, and it doesn't end with you winning. A beat of silence. Then a gunshot cracked through the air. Wood splintered above their heads. Evan shoved Mara down, slammed the ID door, locked it, and ducked behind the heavy table. A second shot punched into the wall. He heard footsteps, 2, maybe 3, circling toward the side of the cabin. Mara, he hissed, get back under. I'm not hiding again. You have to protect them. She looked torn but nodded and slipped back through the pantry door. Evan crawled to the side window, peered out, and saw a figure nearing the porch. Rifle up, he fired once. The man dropped with a grunt, writhing. Another ran back into the trees. The back window shattered. Evan spun, heart in his throat. The rear door was ajar. He rushed to it just in time to see Grant, face twisted in fury, stepping inside with a handgun drawn. I built you, Grant spat, eyes locked on Mara as she emerged. Behind Evan again. You were mine, every smile, every child, every lie mine. You never built anything but fear, Mara said. Evan moved to shield her, but Grant raised the gun. No, you don't get to stand in the way. Before he could fire, a blur shot out from the hallway. Jamie yelling, slamming into Grant's legs with all his weight. The gun skidded across the floor. Evan dove for it. Grant kicked Jamie off, lunged for Mara, but she was ready. She swung, a heavy iron poker from the hearth, striking his shoulder hard enough to drop him to his knees. Get out of my house, she growled. Evan leveled the gun at Grant, breath ragged. It's over, but Grant wasn't done. He lunged again, a knife suddenly in his hand. This time, Evan fired. The shot echoed like thunder. Grant collapsed, breath hitching once, then stilling. The silence after was deafening. Jamie sobbed, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from fury, from the weight of years that finally cracked open. Mara sank to her knees beside Evan, shaking. He dropped the gun, reached for her. It's over. No, she said softly, pressing her head against his chest. Now it begins. Sirens arrived 20 minutes later. Federal agents in black windbreakers flooded the clearing, followed by ambulances and state troopers. The cabin buzzed with voices, flashlights, radios. But inside, Evan kept the children close, his arms around them like roots holding firm. The agents confirmed what Mara had said. Grant had been their final loose thread. His death triggered a domino of arrests. Her testimony would now close the circle. The case was done, the fight was not. That night, after the last car pulled away, the valley fell quiet again. Stars spilled across the sky like spilled salt. Jamie lay in his bed, finally asleep without his fists clenched. Lily whispered dreams to Elsie, who held the bear close but didn't need to grip it like armor anymore. Evan and Mara stood by the window. "What now?" he asked. She took his hand. "Now we live, not in fear, not in hiding. We live." Outside, the first crocus bloomed in the moonlight, pushing through the frost. A promise, small and undeniable. And inside the cabin, for the first time in years, they believed in peace not just as a dream, but as something they had finally, fiercely earned.